Did you know that 77% of buyers are more likely to choose a company when its leaders and employees share thought leadership online? Now, in today's crowded market, your personal brand can be the ultimate growth engine. Now, my guest, Sima Dahl, shows us how to turn influence into measurable business results.
Welcome to Fordify Live with your host, Saeks.
Today's guest is a branding visionary who has helped thousands of professionals in Fortune 500 companies rethink the way they grow through influence. Now, she's the founder of the Sway Factory. She's the creator of Sway Factor philosophy, and she's one of the few speakers worldwide to hold both the Certified Speaking Professional, CSP designation, and the Accredited Speaker designation. Now, she's got a 20-year background in helping B2B marketing and a client list that includes major companies like United Airlines and Cisco and Walgreens and more. So, Sima, welcome to Fordify Live.
I love it. Thank you, Ford, for that warm introduction.
Now, I know we talked in the green room. You're like, well, Ford, I know you do a lot in franchising. My roles in business. I know your roles in business, and our listeners are from a wide variety. So why don't you just share with our listeners a little bit about what you're doing now and how did you get to the position of the Sway Factor?
Yeah, sure. I'll start with the second question first. When I graduated from school, if you asked me what my name was and what I did for a living, I would be tongue-tied and couldn't tell you. Fast forward, I'm on stages with thousands of people. I'm working in large corporations with their top talent and teams. And I learned that leadership can be learned. And I learned that your self-worth, what you see in the mirror, you have to change that before you can change how others see you. So it's been a journey. And today what I do is I take those lessons learned in the leadership and personal branding vein, and I take them into corporations and I teach go-getters, high potential talent, emerging leaders, even senior leaders, how to make a name for themselves. Like I used to market companies and now I help people market themselves.
Well, who would you say is your ideal customer then?
My ideal customer is a progressive-minded enterprise who understands that when their employees know how to go after what they want in the organization, they're going to drive decreased turnover or increased retention. Employees don't know how to interview for the next job in the enterprise. They don't know how to introduce themselves, how to build an intra-company network. They just never knew it was important. It was all about getting the job. Then they get there and they think the company is going to help them progress. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Companies need to empower employees to go after what they want if they want to keep their best talent. So those companies that are progressive minded, that have leadership development training programs, that believe their people are their best asset, that's my target.
Well, that makes so much sense because as a Hall of Fame keynote speaker myself and traveling and speaking at conferences just like you and I both do, we have those pre-event calls and they always, what are your outcomes? Who have you hired in the past? And what are you trying to do? And it's interesting because I specialize in business growth, but a lot of times when I'm asking what their top challenges are in their organization, they'll tell me, well, their top challenges are, finding, retaining, and attracting top talent. And then I'm like, okay, that's great. And then you have to cover that. But I found that when it comes to this, I'm curious on your take on this, is that a lot of times they say they want help with X, but it really means Y. So what I'm saying is it a culture problem, leadership, management, team building, communication, change? So the customer sometimes and the client or even the individual, they might think it's one thing when in reality it's something different. What attracted me to have you on the show is, one, you're in hot demand, so thank you for carving out time for this episode, but because you really take a look at how companies can elevate their employees, and by elevating their employees, it reduces retention and it increases retention, it reduces attrition.
It does, and it also lifts up the organization in and of itself. You turn an employee into an employee brand ambassador. It helps your employer brand, helps your ability to attract talent into the top of the funnel, to keep them longer. Oftentimes, 1 in 2 employees today is prepared to leave their job. It could be for a better benefit. It could be for a little more salary. And so when people can find their highest work, their highest gifts are in use in the enterprise. And let's face it, we know it costs between 50,000 and 200,000 or more to replace a single employee. There's time lost, there's creativity lost, there's ramp up time. It's $1 trillion a year in cost to businesses for staff turnover. So it's a real problem. It does impact culture. It does impact communication. But what I see happening is it's an investment in leadership development, which is just generally missing from organizations today. There's a lot of lip service, but not a lot of hands-on, knuckle down and learn how to do this for yourself.
I would agree. Now, if you're listening to this, the audio from this episode also becomes the Business Growth Show podcast. So our guest today is Sima Dahl, Dahl. You can check her out at simadahl.com. It says .csp, but it's .com, isn't it? Yeah, .com. Okay. I was like, I'm looking at the setting. I know your website. So for everybody, we're doing this live. I'm not editing this out, everybody. It's Sima Dahl, SIMADAHL.com. Check her out online. She's very popular. You check out her articles on LinkedIn and everything else. All right, so back to the point here. I've heard you say that it's important that we all become a CMO of our own brand. So what does that mean?
Chief Marketing Officer. We can't expect people to tell others our gifts and talents as well as we're supposed to be able to express them ourselves. I have a little formula, the Sway Factor personal branding model, and it's your essence, expression, enrollment, and evolution. So your essence is what lights you up, how you're wired, how you think, the types of projects and works. Like, I'm a word nerd. I've always been that way. Made it easy to have a career in marketing and branding because I love language. My expression, however, is how I articulate my value. And that's where I see a lot of people just using their business title. Like, if I meet you and you give me your business title, like, chief officer, CEO, and president, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the Ford Saeks, keynote speaker who's going to drive my sales team to the edges of their seat and make it rain. That's what I'm looking for. So what's your value? And then how do you enroll others into that story? You have to believe it when you look in the mirror. You have to be able to tell people who you are and what you do in a way that's memorable. And you have to give a little room for edits as you evolve and your true north, your personal brand true north changes over time. But I really think in the organization, we run around hiding behind our titles. Nobody knows who's gifted at what. We change jobs almost on accident. And I think there's a real intentionality missing from career management in the enterprise.
No, I would agree with you from a career management. I've had 17 different companies. 3 were 7 figures. I've had hundreds of employees, but I was the poster child for dysfunction. I delegated without details. I changed the targets mid-sentence. I'd hire fast and fire slow. I didn't onboard properly. I didn't communicate properly. I mean, because as an entrepreneur, you're good at one of 3 things, right? You're either good at delivering the product or service, you're a practitioner, or you're excellent in operational leadership in those things, or you're great in marketing and sales. You're always good in 1 or 2 of those, never 3.
Yep.
And so I was always good in marketing and sales. I could always generate business. I would bridge the gap between the value proposition and the customer. But my team, I was just hiring to fill spots. Oh, I need someone in accounting. I need someone here. And I learned over the years that was wrong, of course. And so I know that many companies, feel that encouraging their employees to build personal brands, they feel sometimes that it might distract from the company brand. Now, you've made a career on changing that. How do you work with an organization that hears this and thinks, I don't want my people to have a personal brand, because then it's fear factor, it's lack mentality probably, and they're not actually implementing these strategies? You know what, Ford? I don't work with those clients at all. That's good. I don't work with that. Listen, if I'm talking to somebody in customer service and I look them up online to see what their background is, what's their deal. Wow, she's super nice, or he's kind of grumpy. I want the person that I see online, their digital footprint, to scream volumes about how excellent the person is and how much they love where they work, how much they enjoy serving customers. I want that same digital footprint. These companies invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in Workday and similar HRIS solutions in the enterprise. They don't fill them out. They don't say what their goals are, where they want to go. And
they're not, their name isn't being whispered behind closed doors. That's what I want. I want you to get the phone call that says, the company doesn't know yet, but we're merging with another one. We're going to need somebody to take over a task force to onboard all the new employees. And your name has been mentioned numerous times because you've made a name for yourself. You're a known entity. Like, if you don't want your people to be known for their gifts and talents, then you're going to miss out on employee brand ambassadors. You're going to miss out on opportunity to minimize retention. And also creative problem solving. Also breaking down silos. As people become known and better networked in the organization, they can solve problems faster. They can increase the speed to market. No harm comes from this, only good. So if you're against it, then you're probably not a good fit for me.
Yeah, I've always believed that, you have to fire your bottom 5 or to 10% of your clients because they become PITAs, which are just pain in the butts, right? And
right.
It's not worth trying to convince them that they need it. At some point, they have to be open. So they don't necessarily have to know everything about how to make that happen, to create the brand ambassadors and internally to make sure that their employees are advocates. But you want to make sure you create a culture of that creates that, because I think that those organizations, and certainly the ones that you've worked with, that you've done that with, they actually can recruit faster, because when someone vets them, they can see that everybody in the organization is on board and they're all going in the right direction.
Yeah, and that should happen at onboarding. It should be, like a KPI almost. Like, how do you best represent yourself? Are you getting networked in the enterprise? Don't just talk to your 3 colleagues. Don't keep your heads down and work harder. We know that 85% of what promotes an employee is soft skills or leadership skills. So let's teach employees how to develop those and have our workforce shine. If you can empower employees to share that you're having a day of service in the organization and that everybody's involved and you're going to paint homeless houses or whatever you're doing, then that lifts up the employer brand. If you can get employees to talk about, my worst fear is when a manager's like, I cannot hire, this position is too specific. And I look at the manager's online digital footprint and they look like they can't get out of bed in the morning. I mean, come on, you got to look like somebody I want to work for. Same to in the organization, same to person, peer to peer, colleague to colleague.
No, I agree. What strategies do you give organizations? So let's say an organization is excited, they want to bring you in, because you do more than, obviously, you help brands and you're a keynote speaker, but you also go in and make real transformations in brands. Share a story of maybe a before and after. You worked with a company that was X and now they're Y.
Sure. I'm trying to think really fast who I can talk about. All right, so there's a major airline that I've worked with, and they wanted to empower their managers, of which there are thousands, to own their personal brand, own their story, and stay longer, because there's a lot of, as you can imagine, a lot of expertise. And when an employee leaves an airline after 10, 12 years, they lose a lot of knowledge and it's hard to replace. So how do you scale a program like that? Well, we did in-person training at headquarters. We did simulcast on video. We created an on-demand course that managers were encouraged to take with, 6 different video sessions on practical. And then the managers would use KPIs to see if the employees were stepping out of their comfort zone to embrace these best practices for making a name for themselves. And it was a real partnership and a real success. They had me back for many years until they sort of changed leadership.
Well, and that happens. But what's important is, there's no shortage of organizations that are struggling to help their leaders. And I think that what you're doing is so profound, because a lot of organizations do what I did. They just hire. And, I had a $1 million budget for payroll. I mean, I was paying a lot of money, and it's just like, at some point you've got to rely on those things. I know for me, I hired somebody to come in for team building, and they came in and they did 360s with my team and with my executive leadership. And they came into my room, and I can't repeat the conversation. It'll sound like Tourette syndrome, but they came in and they said, look, you don't have a team building problem. You have a culture and a leadership problem. You're not rewarding them. You're not allowing them to shine. You're being too confined. You're micromanaging. Like, oh, I was the poster child. Now, it wasn't that I didn't want the result. I just didn't know what I didn't know, right? So part of that is the open-mindedness. You got to be open-minded and coachable and proactive and, reach out and actually get help.
Can't cut through the online chaos? This episode is powered by Ignite Visibility, the nation's expert in ROI-driven digital marketing. We help over 90 leading franchise brands and 2,500 locations outrank competitors and convert more customers. Ready to stand out and grow? Claim your free digital marketing audit at ignitevisibility.com. Ignite your growth.
And so I love that you're helping those organizations because especially with the multiple generations in the marketplace right now, the rate of change, technology disruption, there's all these things going on. But the real currency of the future, I believe, are people skills. What do you think?
Well, exactly, especially in the face of AI taking over jobs. I mean, there's real fear out there that my job's going to be eliminated. Well, what can you do proactively to become known as somebody who is not afraid of AI, perhaps even leverages it, but is value add, moving the needle, either top line or bottom line, making time, saving money, however you measure your success, people need to know that. And if you don't look in the mirror and see that value in yourself, nobody else is likely to see it either. I really think that people are a complex business. We used to say in B2B marketing, it's consistent messaging across touch points. So how you show up, how you introduce yourself, it's a complex sale. It takes time to know a person thoroughly enough to recommend or refer them. And that's your job. It's your job to practice consistent messaging, become known, and your organization should support that. I read a stat just this morning about how employees go longer than 3 months without managers even asking about career satisfaction or career trajectory, career growth. And that's just too long. So you have to know how to bring that up with your manager if managers aren't smart enough to do it themselves.
Well, I would agree that most managers aren't smart enough to do it themselves. So if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, how do I do it? So share with our listeners and viewers. There's someone who works in a corporate, they're a corporate executive or leader in leadership position, but they want to be able to bring that up. Where should they start?
Where should they start in approaching? Well, first of all,
where should they start approaching to let their managers to have the conversation about that satisfaction?
Yeah, you get what you measure. So I'd start with knowing time to fill open positions, turnover rates. And when you see that trending up, I mean, listen, we hit a peak during the Great Resignation. 50%, 50 million employees were quitting their jobs. It's a lot more stable now, but still 50% of people are like, they've got an eye on the door. So know the numbers. And if you do a customer satisfaction poll and an employee satisfaction survey and you don't get the resounding results that you want, then that's your indicator that you've got an opportunity to change the way you're managing and leading your teams.
What does the employee do? So that's what the manager would do, but what does an employee do? What if you feel like you're on the team and you want to do these things? Where should they start? Like, what's the most overlooked social selling habit that could transform someone's results if teams adopted them?
If people would embrace a little bit more storytelling, authentic storytelling when they describe who they are and what they do. I mean, imagine you're in a Teams meeting, a Zoom meeting, you're going around the room, there's a new employee, and the manager says, introduce yourself to the new, and everybody just reads their job title. I have no idea what you do. I don't have any idea what your gifts are. People don't lean into conversations, speak up in meetings. For whatever reason, either they were raised to speak only when spoken to, or they've had their hand slapped before. But we have a lot of introverts that are squashed in meetings that they don't know how to lift themselves up to be heard. So it's a lot of soft skill fundamentals that as you roll them out over time, getting that intra-company network, asking for people to sit down with you for 20 minutes. I do this course on personal branding, and I did it 2 days ago, and I asked the audience, what was the number one reason you don't build a network inside your organization? And the top 2 reasons they gave: 1, they think they're bothering people. That's a problem. And 2, they don't think they have anything to offer in return. And to which I'm saying, you're the gift, you're the asset. Senior leaders need to know all that you can do so you can find your highest gifts in the enterprise. So there's a lot of story up here that needs to be erased and replaced with a story of value.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my accelerated growth system has mindset, strategies, and tactics. And I always tell people, if you don't have your mindset dialed in, all the strategies and tactics in the world aren't going to help you, right? You got to have that dialed in. And I know that, it all starts with that inner belief, that little voice in our head. And what I like the fact is you're helping people unlock that full potential because, I speak a lot on AI right now. I'm not giving book reports and gimmicks. I mean, every speaker in NSA, the National Speakers Association, who can't make it as a speaker is now an AI speaker. No offense to anybody. I'm just saying a lot of people are out there giving book reports and doing gimmicks. And when I meet with organizations, they always ask me, look, our people are scared. They're worried about disruption. It's taking their jobs. I'm working with SaaS companies where they are technology-based companies, and now AI can code better than their coders, right? So there's this fear, and I always tell people this. I say, and I don't do what you do, but I just tell them, look, there's no such thing as job security. Only skills security. If you want to improve your skills, the human factor, and like you're talking about, that personal branding, I think is the best human skill that they can develop because that it's not breaking their arm to pat themselves on their back. It's making sure that they're communicating with value. And it's you and I both have a lot of experience in marketing, and you lead with benefits. You follow up with features. I always hate it when I'm on the Zoom call, and I've taught my team to do this differently. If you ask them what they do, it's always a value proposition like, well, what do you do? Well, I help people find, attract, and keep their customers. I help create wow experiences,
Absolutely.
So my team knows how to do that because I'm in marketing. But unfortunately, even when I do the pre-event calls or I'm doing a deep dive with an organization, I'm accountant, I'm this. And I'm like, don't tie your worth to your title. That's not your identity. Your identity is the results that you produce in that position.
Yeah, I love when people tell me they're a project manager, or my favorite is engineer. There's 47 different engineering degrees in the world. What kind of engineer are you? I like to remind people that personal branding, like you said, don't break your arm to pat yourself on the back, but it's an act of benevolence. Because if you're the world's best kept secret, then you're holding back your peers, your colleagues, and the organization as a whole. I mean, it's been proven out that the more cross the aisle, cross silo interaction you have with others, the better the company performs. So you better become known and help the company grow if you want to have any kind of legacy with the enterprise.
I absolutely agree. And that personal skills, I say this a lot, that the real currency going forward is those soft skills, the ability to communicate, the ability to be a critical thinker, to solve problems, to be proactive. Now, I've also heard you talk about finishing the ellipsis, right? You say, helping others complete the sentence. Who do you know that blank? So tell me a little bit about that philosophy and what does that mean?
Yeah, who do you know who ... I call it own your ellipsis. What is the ... where you want to be associated with it? So who do you know in the organization that excels at analysis or data? Who do you know who is available to lead a task force? I've got somebody going on paternity leave. Who do you know who can backfill for 6 months, whatever? If you're not known for that ... then that's your job one, is to figure out how you want to be known, figure out what your essence and your expression of it is, and then stay there and stay on brand in all that you do and say.
Well, I love the takeaways you're giving. You're giving our listeners real practical things that they can use regardless of what level of business they're at. If your listeners could take away just one action step to strengthen their personal brand starting today, what would it be?
All right. I'm going to throw something at you here.
And while she's answering everybody, these questions are not prepared for. She knows no idea what I'm asking. I have no idea. So again, I know I derailed you, but so I'm looking for, if there was one action step that they could do to strengthen their personal branding and start, what would that be?
Yeah. First of all, fix your email signatures. They don't tell me anything. Second of all, fix your LinkedIn. You've got your job title as your descriptor. It doesn't work. But personally, let's try this. Let's try when somebody asks you who you are and what you do, you just use your first name. If I say I'm Sima Dahl, president, founder, and CEO of Sway Factory, Inc., you don't know if Sima Dahl is one word or two. For its sake, same thing. Let's slow it down. Let's use our first name. Let's lose the job titles and speak a little louder. 1 in 4 people between age 18 and 65 has measurable hearing loss. They don't even know it. And I promise you, if you rattle off something that fast and I don't hear it, I'll be too embarrassed to ask you to say it again. That's just the nature of that beast. So slow down, drop the last name, and use something that piques my interest or opens a dialogue or positions you in my memory. I call it POP. Pique my interest, open a dialogue, position yourself in my memory so that I can connect with you on LinkedIn and I know how to find you, because 3 days from now, I may not remember that we even met, let alone your first and last name. So really hang your hat on your value.
Wow, that is amazing. Where can people learn more about you and what you're doing going forward? It's not necessarily your website, but new question. I'm going to scratch that question. What's really exciting for you going forward? How about we start there? What do you feel going forward? Looking at the landscape of disruption, the economic, technology, what do you see going forward that's really exciting for you?
I see an opportunity to bring some personal emotion and passion into the workplace. For so long, we've been trying to keep our heads down and keep our emotions out of it. But when we're filled with joy or excitement at a new project or an opportunity, we should be comfortable sharing that. If we're passionate about an argument, to be able to disagree with tact and diplomacy, all of that sort of communication that comes from the heart, I think that's where we're going, because everything else is machine learning.
Wow, I really appreciate it. All right, any last closing thoughts?
Last closing thoughts. Be the brand. The brand is you. And remember, nobody can tell your story as well as you. So figure out what it is and then don't be shy, because you're a gift and others need to be aware of it.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to carve out. This is Fordify Live, where we're all about accelerating your growth. Until next time, keep innovating and keep accelerating.
Thank you for tuning in to Fordify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never stop growing.